We asked and queried what would be the best time, and this was the time we were given. So here we go. This is an open dialogue, candid professional dialogue, so feel free to ask whatever you'd like to ask, and we'll do the best we can to answer. So it's up to you. First question. All right, Amy, you're the first prize winner. You get a free cup of coffee. So, all right. You get the free cup of coffee, though.
All right, awesome. I was curious as to how enrollment is looking.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
Excuse me. We have to have the mic because there are people watching on the stream.
That's
And repeat the question.
Thank you.
I'm curious as to how fall enrollment
not
is
you.
looking.
No, not you. The person with the mic, repeat the question.
I got it. So, good afternoon, everyone. Amy, enrollment. Amy Flagler asked how enrollment is doing. I'm interpreting that in terms of fall 18 enrollment, right? So I have posted to the intranet site fall 2018 enrollment data. I did that last evening. I also posted to the intranet site this morning information about spring visit day. That was this past Saturday in terms of attendance in comparison to last April 2017. So in terms of fall 18 enrollment, I am worried for the following reasons. One, applications are down from the same time period in 2017, as well as intents to enroll, which is the more telling story. So in terms of intents to enroll, I'm sorry my back is to you, but I'm pulling out the information. In comparison to the same time period a year ago, applications are down by 186 apps, which equates to an 8% decrease. And intents to enroll, meaning the student has gone on to WebAdvisor and clicked that they are planning to register for fall 18. Those numbers are down 224 from the same time period in 2017, so a 31% decrease. Right. In addition to that, we have priority reg data that Michael Fisher shared yesterday with a few of us. You all are aware that priority reg is occurring and will be occurring. There has been a communication plan implemented encouraging currently enrolled students who are eligible to meet with their faculty advisor or a professional academic advisor. So as of Sunday, April 15th, 29% of eligible students had registered. This is in comparison to the same time period in 2017, where 37% had registered. And I want to remind folks here that this is the first fall priority registration under the new Advising Success Network model, where students are required to meet with an advisor before registering. So we will be discussing at the next SCP Steering Committee meeting, which will be next Wednesday, what strategies we can implement to boost the needle upwards. I know Cassie has already reached out to department chairs, asking them to announce priority reg in their classes and encourage students to meet with their advisors. But that percentage, 29%, is quite a dip. And just for further comparison, in fall of 16, it was 41% at the same time period. And in fall 15, it was 42%. So in terms of new applicant numbers, we have some things competing that most of you know already. High school enrollment is, or really school district enrollments are dipping and will continue to decline through 24-25. I have also posted that data by county and by region to the intranet. So we have smaller graduating classes. And about a month ago, I had our admissions folks make calls to some of our feeder schools to find out why applications were down. And every single one of them said, we have a much smaller class this year. Another thing that is affecting our applications and intents to enroll is the Excelsior Scholarship. There was an article in the Albany Times-Union a few months ago indicating that SUNY four-year college application rates had gone up considerably and that community colleges were suffering from the Excelsior Scholarship. And that is proving to be true. Another factor is private colleges and their discount rate. Most private colleges are discounting their tuition by at least 50% right now. And wooing away students who normally would have begun at Finger Lakes or another community college. So those are some of the things we're facing. On a bright spot, Dawn Langdon, our Director of Financial Aid, will be going to the SUNY FAP meeting on Thursday and participating in a webinar on the new part-time scholarship award. That part-time scholarship award will be eligible for students. It's actually retroactive to the fall of 17. And students are able to receive funding, scholarship funding, for up to 4 semesters, of study. So if we anticipate, and it looks that we are going to have a dip in new student enrollment this fall, unless things turn around, we will be heavily pushing part-time student enrollment, and as well as other tactics to get both full and part-time to enroll. So, okay? Other questions? Be brave.
I guess I have a follow-up for Dr. Mann.
Okay, you're going to repeat her question.
Since we know we're being impacted by Excelsior and students are going to the four-year colleges, is NICAP addressing this and what they plan to try to do?
Not yet, and partly because we're just seeing this year that what some of us feared was going to happen was that this would affect us. This is a governor decision to do. We're going to have to do something about it. So the answer from NICAP is no, not yet, because we're only starting to see the results this year. What I would like to offer to some of you and all of you out here, I like challenges. And challenges are also an opportunity, and I've talked about this from day one when this came out. I'm not in favor of this scholarship the way it's set up. I like the Tennessee Promise a lot better, which is a program where in the state of Tennessee, any 2-year program at any 2-year, 4-year public or private college receives the same type of scholarship that the Excelsior is, except it's spread across the board. That's working very well in Tennessee. If someone wanted to think about equity within the SUNY system, if it had been me, I would have asked for 2 years at a community college and 2 years at a 4-year college. That would have been an equitable solution, but life's not fair. In terms of opportunity, the areas that we do have, Carol said one of them, we need to dig into the part-timers and get more students to come here who don't think they can, or get them started, because you know, and many of you know, once we get them hooked, meaning that we brought them here, they get a class or two under their belt and they go, hey, this is pretty good. I think I can do this. Then we do pretty well of keeping those students, correct? There's another area of opportunity besides part-time, and that is looking for other avenues or areas we've never plugged into well. One of those is 40% of the students in the state of New York, 39% last year, do not fill out a FAFSA form. What's that tell you? It means probably their intent to go to college isn't there. So what are we doing to reach into more of those folks to say we can do better? Have we reached into various sub-communities that are out there as well? Geneva has a Hispanic population that I think we could do a little bit more in terms of being connected to show these are things you can do. So while there's a downside to this, I do think there's opportunity, but it takes some work to get there. Hope that answers your question.
So there's a variety of, so the question was, how do we attract part-time students? I'm particularly interested in creating pathways from workforce certificates to our credit certificates and degree programs. I don't think we've really done a good job of that in the past. We just received a Hanover. We've been working with a firm called Hanover this past year, and Deborah Ortloff shared with me yesterday a report we received in regard to potential new markets. And one of the things that popped up was the Hispanic population, but also adults want short-term studies. And right now, as most of you know, with the exception of online, our delivery format is very traditional. And even with online, we don't have accelerated options for folks who want to get through a certificate or degree in a time-shortened fashion. So that's one thing that we have to start working on. Showing the pathway and identifying those areas, which the Hanover report has done in terms of fields of study, discipline, that adults in our service area are interested in. Business is one of them. That was clearly spelled out in what I saw yesterday. So that's one option. Also looking at former part-time students who have accumulated a significant number of credit hours, who have been working towards a degree, who have stopped out. Obviously, our economy is not helping us, in addition to the other factors that I noted. When we have a robust economy, community college enrollment suffers. So looking to former students, both full and part-time, frankly, who we could woo back to complete the degree is another option. Yes, John. Good, and you? That's okay.
But the idea that more students are going to go to four-year schools through the FLCC program, how can we prepare? Although I want to see all students succeed, we know that not all students do succeed certainly on the first try. And if we're going to have issues essentially with compliance of FLCC, perhaps there's going to be this boomerang effect.
Yeah.
Where students are going to need.
And they lose eligibility.
So how then can we either plan for that, capitalize on that?
That's an excellent question. So John was asking about the fact that Excelsior has very stringent requirements, and if students fail to meet them, so for example, they have to complete 30 credit hours each year. They have to complete every course with a passing grade. A passing grade is a D- or above, right? Shouldn't be too tough. What else am I missing, Dawn, off the top of my head? Right, they have to do 12 credit hours a semester.
GPA?
GPA, no GPA?
So they just have to pass.
Passing grade. That's a sticking point with me, but I won't editorialize. So, good question in that we don't know the effect yet. So, Excelsior was implemented in September, right? August, September, when classes began. So, we really don't know yet how many students may end up at our doorstep because they failed to meet the criteria, the eligibility criteria to continue to receive the scholarship. So we will be assessing that as they come through our doors, and we will be able to, I believe we'll be able to determine the numbers of students that may arrive here in the fall because they failed to meet the criteria. But it's probably going to take about 3 years worth of data, right, to figure out, is there really effect, or are these students actually meeting the criteria and staying at those institutions?
And then once they lose Excelsior, it's done. So
It's done, right.
Are they then left to pay cash, or they still have federal financial aid at that point?
They would still be eligible. Well, so Excelsior is a last dollar scholarship to begin with. So all state, federal aid is applied first, plus scholarships, at least for this year. There's some tweaking going on with the criteria that we will be learning more about shortly. This is somewhat of a lag in terms of what's going to happen for the criteria for 18-19, but they would still be eligible for other forms of aid, but Excelsior is done. There's no appeal process.
That's all right. I was kind of curious as to where we are as far as hiring updates. I know we had Chief Advancement Officer candidates on campus a couple weeks ago. Did we put out anything for that? Where are we with, I know where we are with Provost, but there were like 4 other major ones besides. No, I can't remember your title. I want to say Chief Financial Officer, but I know it's more extensive than that. Where are we in the larger searches? Okay.
Vice President for Administration and Finance is being advertised right now, and I'm going to let Grace talk in a second. The Chief Advancement Officer, we're in the process of having security check on the final candidate. And then we need your help on something for this recent provost search that's ongoing. One of the things we found out yesterday and today wasn't as large of an audience as we would have hoped. So I just asked folks right before we got started here to contact their folks and say, when's the right time to have the open forums for people to show so that we can hopefully get maybe some better visibility on the other ones that show. I'm going to pass to Grace for all the others because she tracks these on a daily and weekly basis.
Thank you. I'm not going to stand up, but currently on our website, the HR website, we do have requisitions in process. If you ever, Amy, if you really ever want to go out and take a look, it's always out there, updated weekly. But we currently are recruiting and interviewing for 6 full-time faculty. Those search committees are already meeting and interviewing candidates. The provost is already online, or in the works with all those candidates. 4 candidates coming back. The Jim's position, the senior vice president position, has been advertised. The search committee has met and developed their interview questions, and hopefully we'll be reviewing resumes in the next week or so, and looking forward to having candidates on campus hopefully the first or second week of May. I know that's a very, it is very ambitious indeed, but they are hoping to do that. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, PLLT, that they are finished interviewing. I think they're in their 2nd round of interviewing right now, and we'll probably have a candidate coming soon with an employment offer for that. But those are the major searches that are going right now. You're welcome. But it is all online on our website, HR website. So if you're interested, just go on there and click, I think it's employment requisitions, and it'll show you everything in process. Okay, thank you. Dawn?
She always did like this.
So we talked about potential declining enrollment, the numbers that we're looking at for the fall. And we know that we have dependency on state funding and county funding, and we know that we also have our fund balance. Can you talk to potential strategies to counteract potential budget gaps that we may see in the upcoming years?
Yeah. So the question was with the declining enrollments and dependency on state and sponsor contributions as well as tuition revenue, do we have strategies to counteract the financial impact of that? One of the biggest things that was in the works this year was a concerted effort between the business officers, the presidents, and SUNY to make pitches to the legislature to change the funding formula. I arrived 7 years ago, and the mantra of the business officers 7 years ago was the funding formula is broken. And that mantra hasn't changed. It's only gotten louder. As a reminder for everyone, the original funding formula was supposed to get a third from the state, a third from the students, and a third from local, which includes the sponsor, fund balance usage, and chargebacks of other counties. And then when all of the colleges opted to be open access, the formula was supposed to go to 40% for the state, 26.7% for the local share, and 33 1/3 for the student. That formula was followed for 1 year, and then the state hasn't met that 40% in any subsequent year. So while that's legislated, what's on the books, they suspend that every year. So what's happened over time is that the state share for a particular college, if you count base aid, rental aid, and some special aid, is anywhere from 25 to maybe 30% if you're lucky, if you get a lot of rental aid. And the sponsors vary across the board. So what's happened is that the burden has fallen to the students, and the students share, if you look at community colleges across the state, is anywhere from 40 to almost 50% now of the formula. So it's definitely broken. So the advocacy that's taken place, the discussion that's taken place over the course of at least a year, and I was part of the committee, was let's look at the funding formula. What can we do? We can't change the local piece, but what can we do that would make some sense for the state? And after a lot of discussion where we even looked at some performance metrics, because you talk about Tennessee and you talk about some of the other ones, performance-based funding is in play in a lot of states, and it's very heavily in play in a lot of states. So we even considered some of that. At the end of the day, what we were advocating for was stable funding, base level funding based upon last year, and then a component that would kick in some additional dollars every year based upon inflation, CPI, those sorts of things, and then some investment in high needs programs. So for the EOP and some of those. That was lobbied very diligently, very hard with the legislatures starting in, I would say, about October. There was a lot of discussion around that. At the end of the day, that didn't go forward this year. This year they gave us an extra $100. But what it means is it's not dead. That model makes a lot of sense for community colleges in an era where declining student enrollments are going to continue for the foreseeable future. It costs a certain level of funds to run the college, regardless of what your enrollments are. We all know that we have to have base level services. We have to have the faculty staff to teach the courses. So that advocacy for that model, I believe, will continue to go forward, and will be hopefully stronger and more readily accepted as we get there. The other thing that's always being, they tweak the chargeback formula. We had a long study, also participated in that. That took place over, I'm going to say 3 years. And then at the end of the day, the new model was supposed to go into effect this year, and they repealed it at the last minute. So that no longer is in play. We have the chargeback model that we have, and for FLCC, that is a significant component of our revenue, because we have 62 to 63% of our students come from outside of Ontario County. So what happens with that formula and how that plays itself out is important to FLCC and a few other colleges, community colleges that have a large out of sponsor populations. I think that's going to continue to be a source of frustration for counties because they don't know what their bill's going to be. They don't know the rate varies between institutions. Our rate is not MCC's rate, not GCC's, it's our own computer rate. And they also don't know where their students are going to go. So they have very limited ability to budget accurately for that. And now with a 2% tax cap rate, I think they're going to continue to put pressure on the legislature to change that. So there are a lot of things in play. I think our sort of best hope is to gain momentum. We just had a meeting last Thursday and Friday. All the business officers met with SUNY business officials as well, and the faculty council representatives, talking about how we can advocate more effectively. And that's pulling NICET into the equation to help lobby with us, and any of the other avenues we can pursue. That's what we have. That answer the question? Other?
I'm not sure exactly how to word it, but I'm wondering if anyone at the college has looked at introducing new opportunities that typically haven't been here. And to be specific, what I'm referring to is MCC offers all of the training that most of our officers, not only through our department, but when I go there, it's often full of like Wayne County, Ontario County, Canandaigua, Geneva. Every time we go there to take training, we have to pay MCC tuition, and we each get usually like half a college credit through MCC. And I'm just wondering, has that ever been explored to open up to do here? For the amount of people that I see go there regularly, I see that as something that could be done here.
The question is, law enforcement has been going to MCC for many classes and training opportunities and workshops. And would there be opportunities here for that kind of professional preparation? There's no reason why we couldn't, in my view. I think it really depends on what the programs are that they're offering, and certainly working with our criminal justice faculty and also working with our PDCE department if it's non-credit. But we have the expertise here in terms of our criminal justice faculty to work to provide some of those opportunities. Now, that having been said, if they're specialized in some way that we don't have the equipment, that's different. But I think we should be exploring those avenues, whether it's non-credit or credit, and also whatever we do might be a credential that's stackable that could apply somewhere else. So I guess I would encourage you to let us know, let me know, let Cassie know, and let the folks in the criminal justice program know, as well as PDCE. What are the opportunities that you're availing yourself of at Monroe? And maybe we can look into doing something similar here, because you're right, I can't think of a reason why we wouldn't want to at least look at that. Now, if it's specific training, like, is it classroom training, or is it in the lab, or is it?
I'm going to defer. A lot of it, I'll be honest, is classroom training.
Is it?
I went there for a 3-week sergeant school. I went there for a 2-week lieutenant school. That was all classroom stuff that's taught through DCJS.
Right.
And they either provide the instructors, but it's done through, again, I don't know the exact details of it, but through sending officers there, I know that we get billed by MCC for the class, and then we receive MCC college credit for taking
And certainly those kinds, as you see at MCC, many colleges do offer that. Jake's not here, he's at a conference in Syracuse. So Kelsey, would you make note that we could perhaps call this to Jake's attention? There may be some new program opportunities here, or at the very least non-credit. And if you could also make a note that we could mention this to Marcy as well, Marcy Lynch from PBCE. Any other comments about that?
Yeah, if I can just make one brief comment, I think he is bold to say that we have that opportunity, and I think reaching out to FLIA is an accredited regional law enforcement academy would be the perfect bridge to that. We have the instructors here, we have the ability, the classroom space, the training facilities, the equipment. It's just a matter of finding that bridge that the details hammering it out. I don't see why we couldn't be our region's model on CC.
I think it's a great idea, and we can certainly get the ball rolling by looking into possibilities. And I don't know if Cassie, you have any comments to add to that, or I don't know if we have any of the criminal justice faculty here, but I do think that we would be in a position to explore it, and I can't think of any reason why we would not be successful in at least planning it. From what you say, there would be a geographical pull there. Certainly we have the expertise, and as you say, working with the appropriate agencies and association to have them provide instructors. So we'll be sure to mention this to both Jake and Marcy and see if we can at least do some initial exploration on possibilities, because that would be great. For lots of reasons, getting new individuals on the campus, contributing to the community. It's good for our students to see that who are in the criminal justice program. It's good to bring back alums or whoever would be coming to those sessions. So I think it's a great idea. So thank you for that.
Sure. Can I add one thing, please? What you just talked about is the language in the current strategic plan that's being developed. And so I'd ask you to take a look at it if you haven't looked at strategic plan. And one of it is to create new and innovative programs that are out there, whether they're credit or non-credit. And take a look at it if you haven't. Call us on it if you don't think it's there clear enough that that's one of the goals that's out there. But we think it is, but we still have time before we move forward. That is one of the things that's in the strategic plan, is to come up and determine those programs we need to help. The words are strengthen the connections to community and industry in our area. And that's both in the non-credit and the credit areas.
So in the new strategic plan that you just mentioned, the center of it is student success, right? So that would signal that all of us are working to help our students be successful, and all of you help all of us with the work that we do day to day. So I'm interested to know what student experiences, without disclosing any details, that you all have had, either yourselves or as you have supported your faculty and staff, that have been meaningful in a way that have caused you to reflect and maybe has given you a bit of a lens that you might want to focus on moving forward. Like, we need to do more of this because it was celebratory. Or perhaps it was the opposite of that, and you think, oh, gee, we really need to focus more on this or improve in that area. I'm interested to know from each of you what those experiences have been.
I've had several experiences, especially with student workers coming in, and we are assisting them with filling out applications, trying to help them understand about resumes, and then we do training on how to be a good employee here. So we're handling probably 100 to 200 student workers a year. That was on I do have several, at this time, several students enrolled here that I know personally from my son, their friends, his friends, and they all talk to me about their experiences here. They talk about their teachers, they talk about their courses, and those kinds of things. My son was here and has left, and I won't go into any detail about that. So that's a very personal experience to me about why did he leave here. So I do have the lens both personally and professionally with students at this time.
Okay. A couple things. Recently, I've had the opportunity to talk to some students in the honors program, which was interesting because Trista gives great leadership to that particular activity, and to hear them express some of their growth as a result of the program makes me only convinced that we're on the right track. We need to do more of it. Another experience that comes to mind is when I was in the cafeteria a while back, I saw students at a table signing, and the part-time instructor who works with those students was there as well. So they were having sort of a mini club time together, and I was trying to learn how to sign by some of the things that they taught me, and of course I remember none of it, but it just struck me that there was a great example of an instructor who's working with students in the classroom and having additional opportunities with students outside of the classroom. And it was just wonderful, that whole conversation, because I felt included in it and I also learned from it. And it was another example of seeing one of our faculty at work and doing an exemplary job. So those are the two things that came to mind when the question was raised about how do we interact with students, and from our interactions with students, how do we get a sense of the community and what might be needed and how we can support them through those interactions. So those are two that come to mind, but I'll let my colleagues talk a bit as well.
I could give a lot of stories, but I'll leave it with a couple things. First, I do believe in something that I said in the first few weeks when I met you all, and that is that we try as best we can to maximize the ability to bring students here and then help them succeed while they come here anytime, anywhere, anyhow. And one of the ones that affected me extremely was a student or a group of students that are now here this year that came from the high school equivalency program. If you get an opportunity, go to the high school equivalency graduation this June. I couldn't keep my eyes dry. And those students, more than half of them, were going through coming to FLCC afterwards. And so when you have a woman who says, the only reason I'm here is if my son had woken up a few minutes later, I'd be dead. But now my two kids are out in the crowd, I'm graduating, I'm alcohol-free for a year now, and I'm going to FLCC. That's bringing somebody here. And then when you help students when they're here, we're all doing it a lot of different ways. We had a student leader that came to me a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago now, and said he had to drop out. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. Let's stop and talk about this. And they said, what's going on? And he was in debt. He was having marriage troubles because he was in debt. He hadn't gotten the aid that he needed, and that he needed to get some help. And so he was getting a job at a place that was going to pay him $14, $15 an hour, which is a lot more than what he's getting around here. And so he was going to have to drop out. And I said, let's stop for a second. How many courses you taking? Student leader, taking 18 credits, working with a wife. And so I said, stop. Here's the first thing you need to do. Drop down to 12 credits, because if you're going to keep going, you're going to have to take these courses again. Don't drop out of school. You already had financial aid. You're going to make it harder. And then I said, let's go over to the foundation and talk to Amy Polly and said, hey, help this person out. He needs a little bit of help, and we gave him a little bit of help. And so that's helping to keep a student here from an issue that was financially driven. I'm going to be brief, but there are three major areas that we lose students. Number one is financial need, that they can't afford it for various reasons. They're just getting by. Number two is employment, and they can't make their schedules meet their employment. And then number three is academic ability. That's what comes out of the surveys and as we're following students as they leave. So the point I want to make to you about that are two things. One, most of our students are working, and that's not a popular thing to say, but I can tell you in pretty good anecdotes, it's a good one. It's not a survey, it's not a hard number. But every single new student orientation that we have, I ask students to raise their hands and tell me how many of them are working. 3/4 of students raise their hands. And then I ask, how many of the students are working more than 20 hours a week? I should make it 30 or even 40, but at least 2/3, if not more, of those students raise their hands and say they're working more than 20 hours a week. They're just getting by. And so what I wanted to pass off to you about this whole thing in the second half about keeping students, no matter what it is, whether you're working in the classroom, if you're working with them in student affairs, wherever it is, what really makes a difference is contact with the student. And we all do that. You should pat yourself on the back. And the more we do that, the more contact students have, the better. The more you can just run into a student in a cafeteria and you just randomly talk to them. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? I'm flunking some of my classes. And you talk to them and go, whoa, wait a minute, you could do this. There, you got two choices. April 17th is coming up. If you need to, think about dropping a class if you need to. And if not, you can fight through. Hey, are you working? No. Well, then you've got a full-time job. Go to school. How many classes you taking? 15 credits. All right, that's 25 hours of study. Let me show you how to do that real quick. Students' eyes brightened up. And a lot of these students leave when they feel like the network is falling down below them. And you all know this. I'm preaching to the choir. But simply, the more contacts we get with those students, the more they have a chance of success. Rob and I's feeling his heart. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's why I'm here. So thanks for the question.
It's a good question, Colin. So I'm a first-generation student, first gen. I'm going to let Jim go first.
So as you might imagine, my observations are around a couple of different areas. One, I get to see the major appeals that come through on finances, the ones that can't be worked out between Ann and the student or with Joe bringing those to me. And when they make it to my level, they're pretty well heartbreaking, because they are significant. And we do the best we can on a one-to-one basis, but we also have to follow policies and procedures. And I think one of the things that we try, but I think we need to do better, is helping our students understand the consequences of their actions around their financial decisions. And Rob just indicated one where, it's not one thing. They may be actually worse off by the actions they take than if they stick with a semester. I was asking Carol, how many of our students are fully funded? 55% of our students come to us fully funded, right? But that's a combination of grants and loans. And so many, we know nationally, so many of our students have loan debt that straps them. My own two kids, the advantages they had, still have loans that they're paying off 10 years, 12 years after they've graduated, and not seeming to get anywhere. We need to make sure that we counsel well regarding the financial decisions that students make, because we don't want to send them to collections, and yet every semester we're bundling them up and we're sending them to collections. So there's 30% on top of what they already owe and damage to their credit that will follow them for many, many years. So figuring out ways to help them understand and to manage finances better here. And the other one I will say is student aids, the utilization of student aids on the encouraging side. I have one department that utilizes them fabulously, and I watch it, and it reminds me of prior experience where the department benefits from having students that really pitch in and do things, but the students benefit from the experiential learning and primarily benefit, as the president said, from the relationships that are formed. And you watch the students go off and then they come back, and where do they go? They go to the place where they worked and with the people that they worked with, and that relationship has bound them to the department but to the institution, and they've stuck with it, and they've graduated. And I think too often, I'm just going to editorialize because I'm going out the door and I can do that now. So too often we sell the students' abilities short. We complain that they're students, they can't do it, or I'll acknowledge it's more difficult to manage a student workforce than it is regular employees. But the benefits are immense to both parties. And these are the same students that, when we don't hire them, they're up at the mall running the stores by themselves. And I've had them run operations, complete operations in an institution past. And I hate to say it, sometimes I feel they were more qualified than people we had full-time. So we need to recognize the abilities of our students and utilize them where we can. And I think recognize the benefit that comes from that for both parties. So.
Thanks. Jim said a really important thing, and that is that it's about relationships, really. And I'll tell you a little story here. Back in 2002, a few years back when I was working here, I had a student aide who was working for me, and he was a nerd, right? He liked computers, and he was very quiet, and he was showing up on time, and he was doing a good job, and I gave him a really lousy task to do. I told him, go in the server room, and all of these cables that are all messed up, I'd like you to straighten those out. And he's really didn't want to do it. And I said, well, I did it back in the day, a long time ago, and if I can do it, you can do it. And he went and did it. And that was 2002. And he graduated from here, went on to RIT, and then I never heard anything about him again. And just about a year ago, I was on LinkedIn. A few of you might be on that platform. And I happened to come across his name. And the guy's working for the Department of Homeland Security now. And I contacted him, and he said, I remember you. You taught me that it's not a bad thing to do something that's menial, because I learned stuff from that. I learned about where the cables were going. I learned about the importance of organization in the server room. I learned those things. And so there's an example of a simple lesson with a student aide that really stuck with somebody, and that's a relationship that I formed with him, and I still have it today. Now if I needed contact at the Department of Homeland Security, I have somebody to call. So, but another thing that just recently happened, probably 6 months ago, I had a student come to my office, and he said, I'm looking for the gymnasium. And I said, okay, well, I can take you there. So I walked him to the gym. And on the way, we had a very nice conversation about working out, which I had done pretty religiously for about a year prior to my shoulder surgery. And he was interested in the equipment that we had in the gym and who ran things and all of that. I talked to him for a while. And I just got an email from him the other day. I haven't seen him in a long time. And he said, you walking me to the gymnasium and talking to me really meant a lot to me. So these relationships that we form with students, and they don't take long. They take 5 minutes, really in most cases, to walk somebody to a room or to listen to what their problems are. They really mean a lot. And what I learned from that, all of these relationships, is that it's really great to have student aides and utilize them. They learn so much. It creates a bond with the school. They tell their friends, they tell their family, and really they have a great message for them, and this is a great place to come to school. So that's my story.
Round two. Okay, so I'm a first-gen student, and I'd be curious to see a show of hands in the room. How many of you are first-gen students, first in family to go to college? Okay, so a few of us. So my dad died when I was 11, and my mom said, you're going to a 2-year college because you can get your associate's degree, and then if you want to go on and get your baccalaureate, your bachelor's, you'll at least have a 2-year degree or associate's degree to fall back on in case it doesn't work out. So, she's a smart cookie. And I didn't want to go to a 2-year college. I wanted to go to a 4-year college with all my friends. But that wasn't financially feasible. So I ended up at Alfred State. It ended up being a wonderful fit for me. Made many friends, lasting friendships that endure today, as well as connections with wonderful faculty in my degree program. I then transferred to SUNY Brockport after I earned my associate's degree, and I walked into my transfer registration program, and I couldn't find, now this is going to date me, I couldn't find any of the cards, the data cards that you needed to run through the computer to get your courses. So there were no course cards for my degree program. So I approached the communications table where some faculty were sitting, and I explained to them that I had been admitted to this particular program. And one of the faculty members had somewhat of a stricken look on his face and said, well, we discontinued that program and you should not have been admitted to it. So little did I know I would end up in enrollment management years later. But this gentleman, Dr. Alan Frank, said to me, why don't you come over here and sit down and we'll figure out what the next steps are. So I ended up graduating with my communications degree from Brockport. And Dr. Frank ended up being my advisor, and he offered me a student aid position, and I worked for him for 2 years. In my senior year, he said to me, what are you going to do with yourself when you graduate? And I said, go to grad school. It was in the middle of a recession similar to what we just went through a few years ago. There were no jobs. Pretty bad time. It was 1980. And he said, well, why don't you do an internship, a field experience? And he said, you know, you could do a field experience here on campus. And I know there are different departments and divisions looking for communication materials to be developed to promote their services to students. So I ended up working for the Dean of Students and working with all the offices within the Division of Student Affairs there and developing communication materials for them. Ended up going to grad school, getting my master's in college student development, and as some of you know, I'm finishing my doctorate this year, hopefully. Right. I will finish. So my point is, being a first-generation student, the relationships that I formed, particularly with faculty who had faith in my ability and guided me, were extremely meaningful. Some of you also know that my son Kevin graduated from Finger Lakes. It was his choice to come here. We did not say you're going to Finger Lakes. We said Finger Lakes is an option, but apply where you will and we'll figure it out. He made the decision to come here because he did not know what degree to pursue, and he chose to be a liberal arts student, and he did graduate from Brockport with his BA in history, and he's going to law school in the fall. He's the success story. And the point about Kevin is he has nothing but accolades to say about this institution. And he said he had a wonderful time. He got a great education at Brockport. He participated in their Washington program, which really was the pinnacle of his Brockport experience. But he said, the faculty here are the best, and I believe him. He is also a success story. I'm currently working with a young man who is hoping to enroll in our advanced manufacturing training program with GW Lisk this summer. He insists he's not college material, even though his brother Andrew graduated from Finger Lakes, also graduated from Brockport. But Nick says, nah, not my cup of tea, although he's very good in math and science. So I've been talking with him weekly about helping him head in the right direction so he can leave a position at the racetrack that is seasonal in nature, and he's been working there for quite a long time and needs financial stability in his life. And I'm hoping that he is accepted to the LISC training program and realizes that he's very capable of pursuing a credit certificate or possibly a degree after that. Also, in terms of experiences, I'm really blessed to work with a number of student leaders here. Our student corporation leaders are, I have to say, outstanding. And as you know, or as you may know, I was Dean of Students for 13 years, and I have to say, whatever Jenny's doing, Sarah, have her keep doing it, because the quality of our student leaders is just bar none. Will Maskry serves on the Strategic Enrollment Planning Steering Committee. He is very thoughtful. He asks excellent questions. It is an asset to have him involved with that committee. I serve as chair of the Association Board of Directors, and we have a few student leaders involved in that board, and they show up. They're actively involved, and it's a pleasure to work with them. So I will leave it at that. Oh, one more thing about First Gen. I've been meaning to mention to the President and Cabinet that, bless you, John Van Neal, that having some type of identifier for those of us that were first generation students, where our students who are first gen could see that and see where we are now, like a door tag, something doesn't have to be significant, but like a little door poster. I'd love to see that, because I know more than those in the room today. We do have a number of first-gen students who work for the college, and how nice would it be to send a message that we all started somewhere and ended up where we are now. So, thank you. Go on.
Carol,
What?
I think that what we just witnessed, sitting here listening to each one of you, would be a really great segue into you discussing the Pathways program.
Okay.
And I don't think everyone here is familiar with that.
Okay, so Dawn is asking me to mention the Pathways Speakers Program. We launched this program this past fall. For those of you who have been here for a while, it was born out of the FLCC Speakers Bureau, and I know some of you, Bruce, was definitely part of the FLCC Speakers Bureau. I know, we're dating ourselves. But that kind of faded away, and the Speakers Bureau was a little pamphlet that was distributed to the external community, Rotary, Kiwanis, etc. And it identified faculty and staff at the college who were willing to speak on given topics. So a year ago, last year, I was cleaning out my files and came across the Speakers Bureau brochure, because as some people know, I save everything. And I thought, how can we make this more contemporary and focus exclusively, and it's turning out not to be so exclusively, but predominantly on getting our faculty and staff into classrooms in school districts in our service area. We have a number of people who have stepped up. Dawn Hess is one of them, John Bellick. Who else? Patty, that's right, I know, I saw you. Anybody else? Sarah, thank you. Robert, yes, Robert. Yes. It's a great opportunity. It is receiving a lot of attention, particularly from certain school districts who are very interested in inviting folks to come to classrooms, and it could be elementary, middle school, or high school. You decide which grade level you wish to work with, and some of you are open to all grade levels, some just high school. You identify your topic, but really it's a method to get you into the classroom, to meet the teacher and the students, to talk about your area of expertise and your pathway in terms of how you got there, because we all know it's not necessarily a straight pathway. So if you go to the website, our website, and you Google Pathways Speakers Program, it'll take you right to the landing page. So I welcome more volunteers. Thank you.
So we did was talking, you talked about how I think often we sell our students short. I think we also quite often overlook the campus resources that we have and even the neglect that sits in this room and in our classrooms. It made me think about a story a few years ago. I sat at the new media and game programming capstone presentation where a student talked about creating a virtual tour for their campus. And when she proposed this plan, she wanted to do it for the main campus. But we found out that we had already hired a firm to do this. She talked about how much she learned creating this. It was largely viewed as a better product than we paid for. And so my question is, how do we institutionalize the idea that our first place to look is internally when we start working on these projects, rather than thinking of going external? It saves money, it engages faculty, staff, and students. It really allows us to leverage a lot of the resources that we already have.
Question was, do we have the ability to utilize our own students and the resources that they bring and the skills they bring to help make us better instead of going outside for people to do things, correct, Charles?
How do we make our first thought? How do we make our first thought look internal?
My first thought, and this is a dialogue, we just hired a new applied learning and internship coordinator that ought to be, in my opinion, the hub for helping to go and say, we have a resource or we have a need, that reaches out between faculty, staff, to be able to say, can we do something in a certain way? We have things out there like Purple Briefcase, but that's one medium, it's tough to do. I do think that applied learning internship coordinator is the starting point to start plugging people together. Does that make sense? And I do agree with you 100% about those. Right now, later on this afternoon, I'm going over to CMAC, the graphic visual arts program. Their students just competed, and they're going to announce the winning student whose logo is going to be the logo for the 2018 CMAC concert. We have students that can do great work for us all across this college. We need to create a system in terms of a network with a hub that then people can say, I have a resource I can use. They can do marketing. I would love to see students doing business plans for things internally for the college. And I'll give you an example. We just had a meeting with our Viticulture Corporation a couple of weeks ago. Are y'all familiar with that? Yes, no? You know, we sell our own wines now from, John, you're out there. We're looking forward to being on the board soon. Hope you pass. So, but when we were sitting here talking, and it's like, we've got these cases of wine that we need to sell. So, because they're going to keep coming year after year. So we got to get these out in distro, and just like most of us here, we don't have a huge staffs to do things. And talking to Paul Brock, it's like, I need somebody to come to me to pick stuff up. So we've been doing some of that. But it'd be wonderful as a business plan to have the marketing folks be able to go market it and create a plan that gets that wine out there for places. It'd be wonderful in your marketing department that we had students that could help us in terms of their ideas and create teams to do things. I think it's a team effort between what the faculty can do when they're doing it in their classroom, creating a system or a format for people to do things, and then creating the information to create a hub so that we can connect the right people to the needs and then the people that will do the activities. Make sense? Anybody else want to pipe in?
So in my mind, Charles, it's both. It's a push and a pull. So I think we've seen some of the benefit of the push. Liz Brownell, her group, right, with the viticulture labels and being able to do that. I think those ideas that can emanate from the faculty working with their students that know what they have to offer, making that known so that as those niches are known, we can plug them in. And then I do think there are ways, and it's a mindset, right? It's these students are incredibly talented. How do we identify those opportunities better and make those available, working with the faculty to say, can we plug that in? I've actually done that in a couple of situations where, we had created something in the past, mapping, all of our devices, and unfortunately they get out of date. And it's like, well, can we partner with the class that's teaching the CAD up in Victor? And we were able to get that, other than going out and hiring a consultant to come back in and do that. I think those are the kinds of opportunities that we just need to be aware of, and we're all busy and we don't necessarily think of that, but I think there are plenty of opportunities like that. So I look at it as both push-pull. Faculty shouldn't be afraid to say, here's what I got my students working on, and they can plug in somewhere to help out.
Many times when staff or faculty come to my office and they're looking for additional help or resources and to pay the stipend or the contract money, many times I will bring up to them that there may be students out there that can do some of this work. And if they're in the area of their study, or even if they're out of the area of their study, if they went to a department that has those, that teaches those kinds of details, that's where I try to push them to get, let's give the contract to a student if we have any that can do the job.
And it may be that we could, working with the Applied Learning coordinator with Jay, there may be a way at the beginning of each semester, whatever, to contact chairs and have them work with their program coordinators and other faculty about the kinds of projects students will be doing that term, and then almost look at the internal operations of the college as one potential client. There's so many different offices, and maybe there are more ways that when faculty have students do project for courses to meet certain outcomes, many of those could perhaps be addressed and fulfilled within the various departments of the college. So it would help the college, it would help the students, because sometimes, going out for internships can be a challenge in terms of transportation, but internally, this college runs in many ways like any large institution, so you do have marketing, you do have other avenues, need for the visual arts, etc., or whatever other project you might have your students working on. So maybe there's a way to work with Jay and the department chairs and other faculty. And I agree, it's a push-pull sort of thing. One thing is to have you be aware that we have interest and we have departments that could use student help, and we'd be proud to utilize their skills. And for us in the department areas to think, when we have a need or a project or require some assistance, think to our program areas and where students could be available to help us on a short-term basis, several hours or many hours, whatever the case might be. So that's another direction we should look at, I think, for applied learning. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
So we do a lot here that is in direct support of our first-year learners. We've got revamped our advisement. We do orientation. We now through our learning framework, have first-year seminars. We've got a lot of co-curricular things. But what we don't have, and what I think we may be missing to amplify the effect of that, and it is our first-year students that are most vulnerable, is any coordination between all these it's all over the campus where these initiatives are happening, but there's really not a mechanism by which we can coordinate our efforts to maximize our potential. And so I'm just wondering, and the literature really supports a direct effort to support first-year experience in a coordinated way. And if there's any way that we can get that on our radar to figure a way to better coordinate all these efforts.
That's a good point. The point being raised is that there are many services and many avenues for support of first-year students across the college, academically, in the co-curricular areas, etc. And would we be better served if there were a better way to coordinate all those efforts in service of students for that critical first year on the college campus? And I think you raise a good point, Kurt. There's so much going on, but it wouldn't hurt for us to have more communication across the college, and I certainly would be open to ways we might accomplish that, whether it's a coordinating person or a committee or several people. But I think there's some value to what you're saying, and certainly I would be open to your suggestions about how to best accomplish that, or anyone else's as you give this some thought. How can we have a point person or individuals that will help us coordinate these efforts for first-year students? That's a good point. Does anyone else want to comment on that? You're good? Okay.
It's 1:45. Another question? Last question? Culminated? Going once? Going twice? No, not sold yet. I just want to say thank you for being here. And the reason I say that is you're here because you want to be able to dialogue. We are all on the same team. And there's one thing I've said sometimes when I send an email is we're on one team. And it's a really honor to be part of this team with these folks and with each one of you. What's amazing when you get to walk around and get about is every single person in this room and every single person that works for this college that's not here in this room truly cares about what we're doing. The more we work together, dialogue together, play together, work together, the more we can do despite any of those challenges that are out there. And sure, there are some challenges. So what? Okay, what do we do about it? How do we work together to do that? And we do that by talking and communicating and working together. And sometimes, we all have our deficiencies, but you just work together. And if we can do that, we do some darn great things. So thank you for being here today. Is this good? Should we continue twice a semester? Yes? I apologize, it was in the auditorium. We didn't plan it early enough. We planned to get the day we get the most people here with everything going on and get near the end of the semester. But it was the best we could do. It could have been nice if we could have had it in a place that was a little bit more intimate. I'll close you with one thing. And it is that we're in the slingshot of academic life, catapulting to the end of the academic year right now. We've already been launched, going 100 miles an hour. There's lots of things going on. And you all have all your things you got to get done before the end of the semester and graduation. And I know it can get stressful. And I just want to say thank you for what you do. You got a team here to help you out. Have a great day.